to game 2 here. A couple goblins in play over there for Mr. Tietze, and you also do see an Aether Vial here. That looks like it has at least one counter, maybe two. We'll find out. As you see some cards in each player's graveyard, and you do see, yet again, a Sylvan Library in play for the Jund player, Zach Tyree.
So yeah, it looks like we saw Thoughtseize was able to take, it looks like a Ringleader perhaps, and then a Sylvan Library in play. So yeah, those two tokens are off from a Mog War Marshal. Looks like there might be a Gem Palm Incinerator that was cycled, possibly to deal with a Dark Confidant or a Deathrite Shaman. So it looks like we're in game 2, turn 3 rather. Zach is up a game, a little behind on mana here, especially with the Wasteland from Max. So
you can see Zach's hand. He's got Dark Confidant over there. Bloodbraid Elf Liliana draws a swamp for the turn.
So let's see. We're gonna get a Liliana in play. Are we just gonna get it down ticked or?
Not the best Liliana here. It's gonna tick up, but you know it just can't tick down. I mean, killing a Goblin token isn't gonna do very much.
I don't know. You kill a Goblin token, you fog for the turn. Let's see if Max just decides to attack it.
Yeah. So you see the Vial with the 3 counters on it. Max doesn't have a Matron or a War Chief or anything. He's going to move that up to 4. You have another Ringleader over there? Okay, look.
He definitely has a Siege Gang.
Yeah, I think he has a Ringleader too.
Two Ringleaders.
Okay. Well then, we are going to see some action right here. His Goblin Ringleader is going to come into play. Trigger. Let's take a look at the top 4 cards here. 1 Goblin.
All right.
Good.
But it is a good Goblin.
Yeah. In Siege Gang Commander, 3 lands are going to go to the bottom. You see Max's hand of 2 Siege Gang Commanders right now. And that 3rd card, I think, is an old school Matron, I think.
No, yeah, so I think he's got...
and he is going to take down Lilianaville right now.
So, it looks like it's the old school Matron. He can cast that. He can uptick his Aether Vial to 5 and start churning out those Siege Gang Commanders. So, Max in pretty good shape right now.
I wonder what Goblin he's going to get. I wonder if he's just going to go get an Incinerator. He's just going to get another Ringleader. Okay, he just wants to... Now he just wants to get a huge card advantage that Tyree can't come back from. So he's already behind on the board, and it's going to be too difficult for him to catch back up now, because you're going to see him resolve his Sylvan Library.
So Max can actually activate the Aether Vial on his upkeep, put the Ringleader into play, see what he gets, and then choose to uptick it.
Yep.
If he wants to just start cranking out those Siege Gangs next turn.
And this is some of the power of Goblins, is that those Ringleaders are able to draw you extra cards. Ringleader into Ringleader, maybe Ringleader into a Matron, which will search for a Ringleader, and then you start just drowning your opponent in card advantage, and it's hard for them to catch back up, and it's kind of hard for the Jund deck, even though it does have Punishing Fire plus Grove of the Burn Willows. That takes time. It's not free to shoot down all those Goblins.
And Tyree does have a Bloodbraid Elf in his hand. Maybe he's going to be trying to dig for an Abrupt Decay to deal with that Aether Vial, try to regain some sort of... board position here. We know he set it up that I believe he could draw the Tarmogoyf that was on top of his deck. It looks like he's going to burn past a land and a Bloodbraid Elf. Oh no,
so it's just going to be Tarmogoyf. Okay. Yeah, if that's an Abrupt Decay, the game does change quite a bit, as it does take care of the Aether Vial. Then those 2 Siege Gangs and that Ringleader are a bit stranded unless Max does draw at least 1 land or running lands. But the Vial is still there, and it's going to be able to keep dominating this game, because that's honestly what Aether Vial does when it goes unchecked from Goblins.
Yeah, and it looks like Tyree does have a Punishing Fire, so he's going to be able to deal with one of the Siege Gang Commander. Max will be able to activate it possibly once, but Max does have an answer to the Burn Willows with the Wasteland, so Zach might only get 1 activation off of the Punishing Fire before, and like we know that Max has 2 copies of Siege Gang in his hand, so looks like we're on Max upkeep. He's just debating what he wants to do with the Aether Vial right now.
He's probably considering that option that you said there, with the maybe I stack the trigger on the Vial, put the Ringleader into play, and then take it up to 5 if I want to.
Yeah, it's a reasonable play, because it gives you a lot of information. You probably want to getting another Ringleader into play right now is not the worst scenario. You can start churning out those Siege Gangs next turn if you reveal cards like Pile Driver, perhaps War Chief, Skirk Prospector. Suddenly it gives you even more decisions to make. So looks like Max is just going to leave it at 4 and just draws a card for the turn.
He draws a Pyrokinesis for the turn.
So yeah, I guess it really doesn't matter if he upticks it now or next turn. Either way, the Siege Gang is not coming into play.
Yep. Now we're going to see Relic go to the bottom. 2 Goblin War Chiefs and a Gem Palm Incinerator. He does have 5 Goblins in play. He also does have a creature in the graveyard. So if he were to cycle that Gem Palm Incinerator with 5 Goblins in play, he can actually take care of that Tarmogoyf right now.
He also has, he has a Pyrokinesis too, so he can actually deal with all the creatures on Tyree's side of the board.
And just get in there for more damage and make it so that Tyree does have to keep trying to catch up and keep his head above water. And you see, yeah, Max is going to check to make sure in the graveyard there is a creature here, because if there wasn't a creature, with how state-based effects work, if that Tarmogoyf was a 4/5 and there wasn't a creature in play, it would actually become a 5/6 with 5 damage on it. So you want to make sure that there is a creature in the graveyard for that when you do cycle the Gem Palm Incinerator, which there is, and that's why you did see Max check. Now, is he going to pull the trigger on that? That's a better question.
Yeah, in these matchups, they always come down to Ringleader. How much advantage can you get off your Ringleader? Is the Goblin deck going to be able to get a Ringleader in play and not be under enough pressure to sort of create this mass of creatures in play to sort of overwhelm the Jund deck? So, and all of this is really made possible because of Aether Vial. It kind of just goes to show you how important it is to draw an Abrupt Decay for the Jund player.
Yeah, make no mistake about it. This is the best. Aether Vial deck in the format. You know, Merfolk is a very good Aether Vial deck. This is certainly the best one, though, because the things that it can do because of the comes into battlefield triggers are absurd.
Yeah.
Where Vial is just kind of cheating the players into play so it can keep up counter magic.
Yep. So Max likely debating whether or not he wants to use the Wasteland now and
Take over the
Burn
Grove.
Willows.
How do you feel about it? You think you pulled the trigger on that?
Yeah, because if you do it while he's tapped out, Zach can't cast the Punishing Fire and then activate his Burn Willows to get it back that turn. So yeah, I like doing where he tapped out. Obviously, you don't really care about casting any of the goblins in your hand. You have a Aether Vial in play and plenty of goblins in play. But again, this is a situation where if Zach is able to draw an Abrupt Decay to deal with that Aether Vial, I think he does have another Bloodbraid Elf in his hand, so suddenly he might be able to turn the corner a little bit, but it really comes down to whether or not he draws an Abrupt Decay. Because if he can't deal with that Abrupt Decay, then those CGA commanders are just going to create too big of an army for Zach to overcome.
Yeah. So we are going to see Bloodstained Mire get sacrificed. Gonna search out a Bayou. And we'll see what the follow-up play is going to be here from Tyree.
Because Abrupt Decay on your Aether Vial and a Punishing Fire would be ideal. So, again, Abrupt Decay and a blocker are not the worst situation. So,
Lightning Bolt not so good here.
So,
it will take care of the Ringleader, yes, and Bloodbraid Elf can stand tall against those 1/1s, but as he is going to take it up to 5, probably going to Vial in the Siege Gang here, and then just probably throw one of the tokens to get rid of that Bloodbraid Elf and start pushing through more damage. And that's exactly what you see. Siege Gang takes care of the Bloodbraid. Here come the three guys in for 3 damage, going to knock Tyree down to 9, and with no cards in his hand, another Siege Gang commander in Max's hand.
Throw over the Burn Willows would be a decent draw.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the worst draw, but it seems like it's just going to be difficult for him to get out of this situation as you see him taking a look at the graveyard.
He has 1 copy of Maelstrom Pulse. And Zach scoops it up. He knows there's just too big of an army in play.
Yeah, I mean, this is what the Goblin deck tries to do. It's a deck that works, all the cards work with each other. And if you're able to amass those cards, then you can create a board position that the opponent can't come back from unless it's a Pyroclasm, maybe an Engineered Plague, something that has a mass removal type effect. Trying to 1-for-1 them, Abrupt Decay, your Goblin War Chief, other such things, isn't the best solution against the Goblin deck because, you need that Abrupt Decay for an Aether Vial. You need Punishing Fire plus Grove of the Burn Willows to be able to pick off all those guys before they do start to create a massive goblin. So the goal is to make sure they don't hit that critical mass of guys.
Yeah, and that's why I think Zach really wants the Ancient Grudge in his sideboard to come in as well because, Aether Vial is just so important for the Goblin deck. If the Goblin deck is allowed to use its Wastelands and use its Rashad Imports without skipping a beat and getting creatures into play, that's huge. And Aether Vial allows it to do that. Yep. So Max Tietze managed to even things out, go to 1-1, and he's 1 win away from making the finals and forcing Cedric and myself to go 0-89 in predicting match outcomes this weekend.
We have a pretty, our record's not good.
Not a great record.
It's not good. I can't hide it. It's not good.
I blame variance.
But you gotta embrace the variance. You gotta embrace it, Osu. It's what it's all about, baby.
Yeah. What else can you blame? So,
I still think Tyree is a favorite here.
On the play, I think Tyree's in good shape. If he draws an answer, he has 4 copies of Abrupt Decay, and if he decides to bring in that Ancient Grudge, he'll have potentially 5 answers to Aether Vial. And being on the play, Thoughtseize is also an answer to Aether Vial. So if he's able to deal with that Aether Vial, I think the rest of his cards should be able to keep Max's Goblin deck in check, but we'll see how it pans out. And is Zach going to be required to be a little aggressive with his mulliganing to find an answer? Is that going to be the way he potentially loses this game? So, because, you know, Max's deck, Goblins, doesn't mulligan that often. I mean, it's pretty consistent. Cards like Aether Vial and Goblin Lackey don't require you to have too much mana, so the range of hands that you can keep, opening hands that you can keep, are kind of wider than a typical deck.
Yep.
So,
I mean, the thing that the Jund deck needs to do, it needs to make it so that Goblins can't play unfair.
Yes. And Aether Vial is one of those cards that, even though Goblins is a fair deck, it's a cheaty card. It's one of those cards. When we say unfair, we mean cards that do things outside the realm of typical Magic rules.
Yes.
So Aether Vial allows you to play creatures at instant speed, and it doesn't really matter what their casting cost is. You need to use mana to cast them.
Yep.
That is not a typical Magic realm. So that is what we mean by doing things like playing unfair. Bloodbraid Elf is an unfair card because Cascade allows you to cast spells for free. Of all the fair decks, you know, all the fair decks have some sort of card in it that makes it unfair.
Yes.
The unfair decks just have a much more powerful unfair card that's all they care about.
Yes.
You know? Their entire deck is just about abusing that unfair card.
Yes. So we'll see if Max can actually get one of the cards that lets his deck play a little bit more broken. Those two cards, of course, are Aether Vial and Goblin Lackey. Those are the cards that make his draw and his deck go. And Lackey is the worst of the two in this matchup, as it is just susceptible to so many more things. Being blocked by Tarmogoyf, Dark Confidant, Deathrite Shaman, especially when you're on the draw. Can be killed by Punishing Fire, Abrupt Decay, Liliana the Veil if the situation calls for it. It's mostly going to be Osip about Aether Vial. And if there is no Abrupt Decay for it or no discard spell for it in the early turns.
Yeah, because again, Goblin Lackey and Aether Vial are quote-unquote the two unfair cards in Max's deck. And Goblin Lackey is just much easier for Zach to deal with. He can block it, he has cheap removal spells for it, whereas Aether Vial, he really only has 4, potentially 5 with the Ancient Grudge ways to deal.
You know, truthfully, I wouldn't be surprised if Tietze did sideboard out Goblin Lackey on the draw. Because, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, how is this going to hit him on the draw?
Yeah.
If that's hitting him on the draw, then Tyree either mulliganed to 5 or 4, or he kept the worst hand imaginable where he can't interact with one. And I just don't think that's likely. And if you got the hand that bad where your Lackey's going to hit him on turn 2 when you're on the draw, you're probably just winning anyway.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree with you. This is definitely one of those matchups where, depending on whether or not you're on the play or draw, your strategy might vary widely.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think the fact that Zach is on the play this game gives him a lot more chances to sort of stop Max from doing things really abusive and unfair.
You know, depending on how many cards he does keep, of course. We have seen Zach already take a mulligan to 5 last round. Not trying to curse you, Zach, I promise. We have seen it happen before.
So it looks like both players still shuffling. I don't believe we're resolving any mulligans. We're just presenting each other's decks. So
Max is very meticulous.
Very meticulous, yes. You know, you're playing for the finals of an open here. So you got to make sure you do things according to plan, be patient. So both players about to look at their hands, see if they want to mulligan anything, or looks like Zach has Liliana. How much do you like Liliana? I'm surprised that we keep seeing Liliana in games where we don't expect it to show up. Against Goblins, I mean, how good is it really?
I mean, there are some board states where I like it, there are some where I don't. It also depends on the Goblin deck you're playing against. For example, if you're playing against me playing Goblins, you know, I'm more dependent on a Goblin Lackey or a Warren Instigator to hit you with. If you're playing against Max or Jim Davis playing Goblins, they have more War Marshal in their deck.
Okay.
And then your Leon looks really bad.
And we know that Max has War Marshal, so I'm surprised we keep seeing this Liliana because, again, I just don't think it's that impressive in this matchup. Now, maybe there's other cards that William likes less than Liliana. Maybe he just shaved a couple of numbers and he just happens to keep drawing them.
Sure.
But it just doesn't look that impressive in this matchup.
So we do see Max's opening hand. You see a Rishadan board over there. You also see an Aether Vial in his hand. So he does have the card that's probably the most important in this matchup for him in his opening hand. You take a look at Zach's hand. Again, he does have that Liliana, a Badlands. Looks like a Wasteland over there. And I think that's a Bloodbraid Elf hanging out as well to go along with that Deathrite Shaman and that Bayou, that Bayou that's in play.
Yeah, so he doesn't have an answer to a turn 1 Aether Vial just yet. But again, as long as he's able to find one before it gets to 2, or maybe 3. I guess 3 is really the key number. If he can stop it from getting to 3, then he still should be okay. But he's going to have to find an answer soon. And I believe he has a Liliana, might have a broad Bloodbraid Elf as well.
Yep.
But Rashad Import may make it difficult for the Bloodbraid Elf to actually come into play in time.
And now there is a Thoughtseize here drawn by Tyree. So a turn late there to try to take care of that Aether Vial. And he is going to start his turn off with a Thoughtseize and not playing maybe a land or moving for Deathrite Shaman for Liliana the Veil. As you do see, Relic Progenitus, 2 copies of Goblin Ringleader, a Rashad Import, a Siege Gang Commander, and a Cavern of Souls.
So this is a really tricky situation for Zach here. He definitely wants to try to get that Bloodbraid Elf into play, but you know, how can you do that when you're facing down 2 copies of Rashad Import in time before the Aether Vial ticks up to 3, potentially 4? So decides to take one of the ringleaders to try to just, you know, we saw how powerful it was in game 2, so I like that play here.
You like taking that over Relic?
Yeah, you know, obviously Relic is annoying, but it's not really the card that's going to be winning Max a matchup. It's one of those cards that's sort of like, okay, well, I'm not going to lose. You know, I'm not going to lose to a specific strategy, but it's not going to win Max the game, whereas Goblin Ringleader could win Max the game.
Okay. So Vial's going to take up to 1. Max draws another Cavern of Souls.
Did Zach forget to play a land this turn, or did he activate the Wasteland?
Oh no!
It looks like he might have forgot to play a land that turn. So it looks like he did realize that he. So yeah, he's pretty upset with himself. It looks like so. Slight lapse in judgment there. Forgot to play a land. Maybe it was just thinking about that Thoughtseize there. But you know, let's see what Max does here. Now that we know
this changes everything.
Yeah, Max.
Port is just Port went from mediocre to insane now.
Yeah, Max can tell that Zach's obviously visibly upset.
Yeah.
So realize there's a mistake there. So he's probably going to take full advantage and just start using that Port, cranking it up, and making sure that his Aether Vial ticks up to 2.
Yeah, and so upkeep is going to tap that Baron. Now.
Oh wow! So
what's he draw? Did he draw Abrupt Decay?
He drew an Abrupt Decay.
Okay.
So really good draw. Oof, that was again. Missing a land drop, not ideal. He would have been able to cast that Abrupt Decay last turn, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Still.
You saw Max's draw step, yes?
Yeah, it looks like another Aether Vial.
Yes, it is. And so he's going to play Rashad Import. He's going to cast another Aether Vial, and he's going to try to mess with Zach's lands a little bit more, basically stunt his growth. And now, you know, because because Zach did miss that land drop, Max is basically the player that's on the play now.
Yep. Because
of the Port. As you see a draw of Punishing Fire for the turn.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to cast his Liliana the Veil.
Yep. I mean, he doesn't have a land in the graveyard, so Deathrite Shaman can't activate for mana right now. You do see a Wasteland being played, and he considered Wastelanding maybe one of those ports, but it basically leaves Zach in the same spot.
Yeah.
As Vial is going to tick up to 1. Max is going to draw a card. It is a Wasteland,
wow, so
which is a huge draw.
A lot of pressure. I actually like playing the Cavern of Souls here, potentially, and just using both your ports. Because, again, you just want to tick up your Aether Vial. You're fine with trying to control the mana here. A Wasteland from Tyree isn't exactly too impressive.
You want to get Wastelanded.
Yeah, you want to get Wasteland. You want him to waste it.
Yep.
Pun intended.
Yeah.
So... Or maybe Max is just thinking, okay, do I forget about this strategy and just play my Goblin Ringleader?
See, I don't want to move here.
Yeah, neither do I. I like this mana denial plan for now. Maybe next turn with the Wasteland, if Zach misses another land drop. But yeah, I really like the mana denial plan from Max.
And the reason I like the mana denial plan is because Zach has shown by playing his Wasteland and not using it that he needs lands.
Yeah.
Because if he didn't need lands, then he would just Wasteland Max, maybe take care of one of those ports and set him back a little bit. He's showing that he needs lands, so now Port is going to be able to mess with him. And the question here is he going to do this or not? And he is going to cast Goblin Ringleader and start to get some creatures on the table. With Goblin War Chief and Goblin Sharpshooter are the cards that come to the hand. You see Relic Progenitus and a Bloodstained Mire go down to the bottom of his deck.
Not a great flip. I mean, War Chief is good. Sharpshooter not the best in this matchup. Yeah. He didn't hit anything that he could Aether Vial into play. So Zach could choose to take 2. He could Punishing Fire it.
He's just going to get that off the board.
Yeah, I guess he figures I like Punishing Fire the War Chief, but again, maybe he just figures, okay, I'm going to maximize my mana next turn with a Blood Raid Elf anyway, so...
Yeah, see, there... I mean, I understand why Max cast Goblin Ringleader, but I just want to, again, because he drew Wasteland that turn.
Yeah.
That's the reason I want to go in the Mana Now strategy. I tap 2 of his lands. I'm forcing him to draw lands, and which, you know, he doesn't even have a lot that he can do with the lands if he does draw them. Then you Wasteland one of his lands, and then you're really setting him back. That Vial's ticking up, and then you're going to be able to start putting your free cards into play and just generate that huge advantage. The only way that goes horribly wrong is if Tyree does top deck another Abrupt Decay, but he just drew one. So likelihood of that happening, you know, 3 outs basically. As you see, he is going to Wasteland now a Cavern of Souls,
which keeps Max off of being able to cast that Goblin War Chief. Now, we're not sure if he has another red source. We know he has a Wasteland, but it looks like he drew Gem Palm Incinerator, which he can't actually cycle because he doesn't have any red source. Cavern of Souls won't allow him to cycle that Gem Palm Incinerator.
And see, if you're Max now, because Zach has Sylvan Library and gets to look at more cards a turn, now I'm off the Mana Now plan. Now I'm off, excuse me, the Mana Now plan. Now I want to start casting cards. Maybe that other Ringleader in my hand.
I don't know if you're necessarily off it just yet. You have a Wasteland, so you're going to be able to deal with the bad lands. So you could effectively keep Zach off of 3 mana. I mean, you know Zach is land light. He didn't make another land drop. Obviously, with Sylvan Library, he's more likely to make his land drops now. But if you Wasteland, you know, say a Bayou, and then you port his other land in his upkeep, you're going to uptake your Vial again and put the War Driver into play, War Chief into play. So I still kind of like the Mana Denial plan, because your Aether Vial is not getting Abrupt Decayed before you're able to put at least a War Chief into play. So
okay.
I still think the Mana Denial plan is a reasonable strategy.
All right, so let's see which road Max looks to take. As you can see him reaching for that Wasteland, and I think he's going to blow up a land here.
I think the fact that he tried the Ringleader plan last turn and kind of exposed himself a little bit, he's a little wary of trying to go for that strategy again and not going off the Mana Denial plan. So
now he's going to cast a Relic of Progenitus, probably with this Rishadan port, and then leave up the other port to be able to use it.
Yeah, and this just gives him more plays. You know, he's basically making 3 plays this turn as opposed to just 1. So I definitely like this line from Max. Let's see, is he going to try to make another play here? Just trying to activate the Relic?
He's going to blow the Relic here and get rid of all the lands in the graveyard. So Deathrite Shaman, he's making it effectively so that, you know, he does only have 1 land. His Deathrite Shaman is going to not be able to remove a land here. He's going to draw Pyrokinesis. And
perfect.
Yeah, I think you use that.
So, yeah, instead of porting a land, he effectively turned off the Deathrite Shaman.
And so now he is just going to pass the turn back here, not using the Pyrokinesis. Doesn't want to pull the trigger on it yet, as you do see Tyree resolving a Sylvan Library activation.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think he'll be able to respond to a Deathrite Shaman activation if Tyree has a sack land or...
So now you do see, David, he is going to Wasteland, and now he's going to Abrupt Decay.
Wow.
And so, yep. I mean,
really probably regrets not pulling the trigger on that Pyrokinesis.
Yeah, and that was kind of the danger. If you're going to go on the Mana Denial plan, go on the Mana Denial plan. If you're not going to go on the Mana Denial plan, then start casting your creatures and try to get this game over with. He's wishy-washy on which one he wants to do, and that's coming back to bite him, because the longer the game goes, the worse off you are against the Sylvan Library.
And he still doesn't pull the trigger on the Pyrokinesis. And the weird thing is, he has no red mana. He has a lot of goblins stuck in his hand, a lot of high-costed goblins. So even if he does draw red mana, he's going to need to go runner for a couple turns. Although it looks like Tyree did brick on lands that turn. So all we're going to get to do here is just attack with a Deathrite Shaman. So we get another War Chief. Still no red mana.
I just want to kill that Deathrite Shaman.
So if we could bring up Pyrokinesis to sort of show the viewers at home what exactly we're talking about. And I believe that is a Pyrokinesis in hand, right?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so Pyrokinesis, a card that we weren't really expecting Max to bring in, but, you know, it does deal with Deathrite Shaman, deals with Dark Confidant. You know, you may remove a red card in your hand from instead of casting it, and you can deal 4 damage divided any way you choose among any number of target creatures. So effectively, you pitch a red card, you can deal 4 damage to the Deathrite Shaman. removing one of Zach's pseudo mana sources.
Now you're going to see Max does draw a Bloodstained Mire off the top of his deck. So we'll see if he's going to search for a basic or one of his non-basics here. Basic does let him dodge Wasteland here. And it does bring a Mountain, it looks like, to the forefront.
So, yeah, even though Max sort of lost his Aether Vial and stalled on lands, Zach is stalling on lands as well and doesn't really have anything going. So if Max eventually does pull the trigger on that Pyrokinesis, he's going to be really, really far behind if he keeps bricking on these Sylvan Libraries. We know at least 2 of the cards on top of his library are on a land.
So let's see what Tietze is going to cast here. As you do see a Goblin Matron in his hand, among other spells. Again, Tyree at 9, Tietze at 16.
We're going to get a Matron. Search for maybe another Ringleader? A Skirk Prospector?
He's going to go with Sharpshooter. And he's going to pass the turn back. And that's basically going to threaten to take care of the Deathrite Shaman and maybe something else in combination with Pyrokinesis.
Yeah, but Pyrokinesis alone takes care of Deathrite Shaman, right? So I mean, I don't know if you're going to give up. You're going to give up the mana denial. So if Zach finally does get a sack land, now it looks like he's still
just 3.
No land.
Looks like 3 non-land cards. And again, this is something where the Sylvan Library does threaten to. You kind of want to go with the mana denial plan because you're like, oh well, Sylvan Library is just going to get him out of it. That's kind of the rationale there. But you see him not hitting any land drops off of this Sylvan Library. I think you can certainly take the opportunity to just go, oh okay, well I guess I'll just use this port, tap your land, maybe kill your Deathrite Shaman, so you really can't do anything. As you do see a Lightning Bolt here for Tyree, it looks like that he's going to cast that, and he is going to take care of that.
And listen, I know that you're at 9 life and you don't want to pay 4 because you're playing against a beatdown deck, but at a certain point, you got to dig.
Yeah, I mean, this is a beatdown deck without any reach.
Yeah, you got to dig. They're not playing burn really. It's a creature-based deck, so I don't expect how Zach expects to. I don't see how Zach expects to get out of this if he doesn't start making his land drops a couple turns ago, which is when I felt he should have started to actually started digging. You need to the same thing we saw in the last match. If both players are really unwilling to pay 4 life to dig a little deeper, Sylvan Library isn't a card drawing spell unless you pay those life. Yep. You're looking at the top 3 cards doesn't matter. You're just going 1 deeper each turn. You need to start paying the life in order to make it any worth your while. So Zach, again, he sees 1 card deeper. It's a Bloodbraid Elf. It's not a land. Now he's facing down a War Chief, and War Chief makes all the cards in Max's hand much cheaper.
Yep.
So he's going to be at a point where he can't even pay 4 life now.
And so now he's going to be able to, as you see, Dark Confidant is the card that he does take. Now he's going to be able to unload with this Goblin War Chief and just do whatever he wants to do with those cards and just unload them at a faster clip. As you do see, the Deathrite Shaman is going to activate for mana here. Removing Cavern Souls and Punishing Fire is going to take care of that War Chief.
And Pyrokinesis just still sitting in Max's hand.
Yeah. I don't quite understand it. I'd love to talk to him and see an explanation for why he just refuses to pull the trigger on Deathrite Shaman, because if he pulled the trigger on that, then we got Zach working with 1 mana, clearly not finding any lands where with the Deathrite Shaman in play, Max is allowing them to interact with them where I just don't think he has any reason to do that.
Yeah, I would say this game is probably over 2 turns ago if that Deathrite Shaman is not in play. So
I'm sure there's some rationale behind it. I mean, again, Max is a player who has won a Star City Games Invitational. He's won a Legacy Open playing Goblins before. So, certainly something I could be missing. I'm just a little bit surprised to see that thing still in play and allow Tyree to be able to get back into this game.
Yeah. So are we going to see a Matron here? It looks like a 3-man. Oh, no, we have another War Chief. Yep. So War Chief coming in play, dropping Tyree's life down to 5. And now he's in a position where he just can't afford to dig.
Yeah.
Can't pay 4 life when you're at 5 against a Goblin deck. Any prospector you can go in.
So he's going to go down to 4. Off of that Bloodstained Mire that he did find off the 3rd card down in Sylvan Library.
Now the question is, does he have another copy of Liliana in his hand?
I think so.
It looks like there's a Liliana.
You see it right there at the top. He's got so many cards in his hand.
It looks like he has a Jete as well. So if you could find a 4th land there, but it looks like Yeah, Tietze not really going to be able to get online fast enough, I don't think. So it looks like Liliana's going to come down, possibly can ticket down to deal with the War Chief, and hope that Max doesn't have yet another Haste Goblin.
And so there is your Liliana of the Veil. That's going to go down to 1. That's going to take care of the Goblin War Chief. And so now Max is going to draw a card. It is a Cavern of Souls.
So good draw. Allow him to cast the Siege Gang Commander now, if he chooses. Siege Gang Commander, very tough for Zach to deal with. He has a Maelstrom Pulse to deal with the tokens, but again, he doesn't, you know, what are you going to do? Are you going to deal with the tokens, or are you going to deal with the Siege Gang Commander himself? You know?
It's a lose-lose situation.
It's a lose-lose situation. At that point, Tyree, Zach also Max has the Gem Pump Incinerator, so if he's able to untap with any number of goblins in play, he'll be able to deal with Deathrise Shaman as well.
So there is your Cavern of Souls, and there is your Siege Gang Commander. Max comes to the same conclusion that you do, Osip, and he's going to pass the turn back, start to litter the field with some goblins. Sylvan Library activation here, as you do see. Liliana the Veil, because it is at 1, you know, discard a card. I don't think either player, it's going to affect either player right now.
So looks like there are maybe a couple lands on top of his library, so if he does want to get a land, maybe Bloodbraid Elf into some sort of removal spell, but then again, we know Max has both a Gem Pump Incinerator and a Pyrokinesis to clear the way, so I don't see Zach being able to survive this turn. He needs to hit maybe land Bloodbraid Elf into Deathrite Shaman, into removal spell. It's got to be like maybe a Maelstrom Pulse, but even then, you probably lose to the Siege Gang Commander, attacking and then activation. As long as yeah, you discard Pyrokinesis to kill the Bloodbraid Elf.
So Badlands is the card that is taken there by Tyree.
He's doing the math in his head. Does he need to keep Deathrite Shaman active so he can activate it and gain some life?
And so he's going to discard a Dark Confidant, and we'll see what card that Tietze did discard in just a moment. So you see, it looks like another Dark Confidant over there. Just a couple different cards. Of course, that was Gite that he cannot play and equip right now.
No.
And actually be able to attack. Can't have that done. Maybe you see him play a Dark Confidant there with the 2 Badlands, and then leave up the Bayou to be able to gain some life. Maybe block with the Shaman, gain some life that way. Go up to 6.
Yeah, we know that won't work, but Zach doesn't. So let's see.
And the card he just discarded was the Skirk Prospector.
So it looks like that is what Zach's debating, whether or not he wants to just get that Dark Confidant there as a potential blocker. But again, you know, Max has at least 1 mountain in play, so he can only. I think the other source is a Cavern of Souls. Not sure if he has 2 mountains or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure either right now.
So he does have 2 mountains.
Yeah, it's two mountains, 2 ports, and a cavern.
So double activation of Siege Gang kills you anyway. So I think you have to just go. So he's double activation of Siege Gang Commander. I can activate my Deathrite Shaman to gain 2 life.
Sure.
So it looks like he's just going to go for a Bloodbraid Elf here.
He's going to remove a land. He's going to play Bloodbraid Elf, hope for the best in the Cascade. But, I mean, if this removal spell doesn't kill Siege King Commander, he's just left himself dead on board. And we know he has the Pyrokinesis in his hand as well that he's been holding for a very, very long time. And there's a Deathrite Shaman. So
he's got 2 blockers there.
Yep.
But double activation from Siege Gang won't matter. And
so you are going to see his concession. So Max Tietze is going to move on the finals here. Does win the match 2-1 over Zach Tyree. Goblins does defeat Jun, which means, Osip, that our record of calling matches here is 0-3000 now.
Yes.
As opposed to 2,999. So.
But on the plus side, we get to see this match.